Bill Burr has angered them again. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, please make sure that you like the video, comment when I get on your nerves, and subscribe so you know the next time that I'll be getting on your nerves. So, last night, everybody was talking about SNL and Bill Burr making some people mad. I'm not gonna lie and say he made everybody mad, because who he made mad was a very particular and very small amount of the population. When you look at the video of Bill Burr doing his set on SNL, it's got over 2 million views, and the likes to dislikes ratio is very, very different, as far as very low number of dislikes to a pretty high number of likes. And that lets you guys know exactly what's going on with cancel culture and what's going on with people in general. And that's the main thing that Bill Burr did to make people mad, was he actually called out cancel culture, which is something Dave Chappelle did on Sticks and Stones, I believe it was, where he called out cancel culture. And this really pisses off the cancel culture people, because they realize that every time that that happens, it chips away at their credibility, because more and more people see that if you just stand up to it, it really isn't a thing. So I would say that was his main violation as far as cancel culture goes, is that he put them in a position where they're going to have to try him again, and it's not going to end up in their favor, because people are tired of cancel culture. It just isn't working when it comes down to policing art, policing speech, even policing everyday conversation. Just cancel culture doesn't have a place in the world. People should be able to say things you don't like and still be able to live their lives, provided that it's not anything truly racist, truly homophobic, truly transphobic. It really shouldn't affect a person's life if they just don't agree with what it is you think, or they don't see things in the exact same way you do. So I think that was like the biggest problem for them, was that he called out cancel culture. Then it was the fact that he mentioned white women and he used the word which I know a lot of they don't mind the word. So I'm not sure where this guy that was on Twitter that really decided to cape for women that way and make it seem like Bill Burr was practically a caveman because he said I just don't know where that even comes from. So it's that, to me, is so far out of the realm of actual reality that it almost doesn't even deserve to be paid attention to. And I wish people would stop paying attention to these people that make these problems with things that don't matter. When it comes to what Bill Burr said specifically about white women and them co-opting the woke movement, that's 100% true, and that's something I called out in person with somebody way back when that first started happening. It was when Dylan Roof did the church shooting, and there was a white woman that I know that was throwing white men under the bus. And I'm not caping for white men right now, I'm just telling you the way it went down. She was throwing white men under the bus and making it seem like white women are now at the minority table. And it's like, yeah, you do have your own struggle, and a lot of people of color will recognize that, myself included. But at the same time, your struggle was a lot different than the average person of color, especially black person. So this is something that also will really piss people off that are part of that movement, because there's plenty of white women that get it. They're in on the joke. They're having a good time. They don't really care what Bill Burr is saying. They don't care what I'm saying. Yeah, they might listen to it and just be like, okay, well, that's another way of looking at things. But unless you're one of the people that's really doing that, you're not really worried about what Bill Burr said. I believe the expression is a hit dog a holler, and that's what it was. It really is just the people that are doing that are very upset right now, because again, you're calling it out as being bullshit. You're letting people know that, hey, this is basically a toothless dog over here right now, and I'm going to prove it to you by kicking it, and it's not going to do anything back. Because if it tries to do anything back, it's toothless. It's going to have no effect. And that's what's starting to happen with the woke movement, cancel culture, white women that want to identify as minorities or pretend that they share the struggle with minorities. It's fine. You have your own struggle. Like I said, deal with that. But don't try to turn it into a thing where now you're the same as a person of color, especially a black person. I am Mexican American. I realize that the struggle of black people has definitely been longer and harder than it has been even for myself or my people. It's just what it is, and there's nothing wrong with saying things exactly the way that they are. Then the last thing people were upset about was the fact that he mentioned Gay Pride Month and how he didn't know it was Gay Pride Month, and did we need the whole month? And again, it's like, why does anybody care? If you're gay, you know that Pride Month didn't really become a thing until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where they really started pushing it in the mainstream. But that's what it's turned into, and we accept that. But at the same time, don't make it seem like it's always been this thing, when the reality is it hasn't always been this thing. June hasn't always been Pride Month, and there's nothing wrong. He's not a caveman for saying that. I'm just kind of tired of everybody making everything a big deal when a lot of these things don't have to be a big deal. In some cases, they can just be good conversation pieces rather than let's all join together and be outraged. The truth about cancel culture itself, if you guys really want to know, as a person who's actually been canceled before, I will tell you, is that in a lot of cases when it comes to cancel culture, it's a very small group of people that make a bunch of email accounts and also have a bunch of Twitter accounts, because this is what they do with their spare time. And so when they get upset with somebody, then they make it seem like it's just this flood of people. So if you're performing at a club, or I was performing at a club and somebody was mad at me, what they would do is they would put together like 10 email accounts, or they would use 10 different email accounts. They'd have 2 of their other no-life friends join in with them, so now there's 3 people involved. Those people have 10 or so email accounts, and they just send a bunch of emails that are worded kind of closely, but not exactly the same, to the comedy club or the venue. And they make the comedy club or venue feel like this is 30 people that are right now threatening to protest this club and these shows if we don't cancel this person. So then the club feels like their back is against the wall. But now a lot more venues are starting to stand up to that and just being like, okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And then it turns into a thing where I'm ready to record because this will be a big moment for me for the protesters to actually show up, and nobody shows up to protest or picket. They did it with Louis C.K. in San Jose. Again, it was a very small crowd that showed up. And all of this is working against cancel culture and the woke movement, because like I said, the more that this happens, the more people see exactly how toothless this dog or these dogs are. And I'm going to tell you guys what I find ironic about the white women thing is I've gotten in arguments with white women that try to co-opt movements. This is something that I do regularly. If you're my friend on Facebook or Twitter, you've seen me do it, and you've seen me use their tactics against them. That's something I fully admit to doing. Every once in a while, I use their tactics against them. I turn it on them completely. And I always remind people that when you're telling me that it's inappropriate for me to have these thoughts or express these feelings, you're completely contradicting yourself. Because when you've decided that you're now in charge of what's inappropriate and what is appropriate, that is you exercising the same privilege that you claim to fight against. Because otherwise, if you weren't exercising some sort of privilege, then you would understand that you don't get to decide what is and isn't appropriate. Your opinion matters just as much or just as little as mine does, and we're both allowed to express them. So, people ask me to talk about this. There it is there. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.